Voting isn't just going to the polls anymore on Election Day. Options like early voting, mail-in voting, and ballot drop boxes are available to more voters and are growing in popularity. How to Vote is a tool created by Democracy Works, and it breaks down the options your state offers by forecasting a ballot, empowering you to decide where and when to vote. Democracy works best when we all vote, but misinformation and confusion about election procedures have resulted in low voter turnout. How to Vote takes the guesswork out of the voting process. It is easy to use and helps folks from all over the country overcome many of the process barriers to voting. It is committed to helping you vote no matter what. You can use the How to Vote tool to sign up for election reminders, see what's on your ballot, get step-by-step assistance requesting your mail ballot, explore your options for returning your mail-in ballot, check your voter registration status, and find your local polling site and make sure that you have an appropriate ID to bring with you. Decide when and where you'll vote this year at howto.vote.
Hello and welcome to the Formal Review. Today, we will be having a very special episode. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 37 of the Formal Review. Now that I have finished every single review that I was going to do for 2018 season, it's time to look back at 2018 and give honestly the top 10 films of the year. For those who have been listening, in June I did do a top 5 of the year so far, and now we're expanding that to 10. Will some of those films stay at the top, or will they move down? Were there films better than this? Stay tuned to find out. Now before I get started on that list, I do want to give some films honorable mentions here, because I do think that they're really well done films, but they really just don't make the top 10 list. That list first starts off with The Wife. If you want my full thoughts on that film, please go to episode 30. But in short, I did think that this film was really well done, and Glenn Close is really, really great. However, honestly, I just couldn't see myself rewatching it, and really that's a big thing. The next film is Blockers. If you want to see my full thoughts on that, please go check out Box Office Buzz and look for the Blockers review. I honestly really loved this film. I thought it had a great message and was really funny, but then I rewatched it later on and it didn't really sink as much as I wanted it to. I thought it definitely dragged at times and certain parts weren't as funny the second time around. But I still think it's a really well done film, and if you haven't watched it, I'd definitely check it out, especially if you need a good laugh. John Cena is really funny in the film. Now the next film is Hereditary. Now if you want to hear my full thoughts on that film, please go check out episode 3. Now I really love this film. I thought it was a great film from a horror aspect. I thought it was really creepy and everything about it was great, but horror films aren't my bag. But I really like this film, and if you haven't watched it, definitely check it out. Now the next film is Incredibles 2. I think that this film is really well done, and if you want to check out my full thoughts on that, go check out episode 8. But it just, for me, was honestly a little bit of a letdown when it came to the overall Pixar arsenal. I think that really what stood out more about this film was the short film Bow at the beginning of it. But it is still a really good film, and if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. Now the next film is You Were Never Really Here. Now I think that this film was an amazing film to experience. Go check out my full thoughts on Box Office Buzz. But coming out of it, I knew I loved the technique of it, but I wasn't sure I loved everything about it because of how depressing it was and how sad the story and tragic it was. It's really hard to push for a rewatch. Now, the next film that I want to put on this list is 8th Grade. Now, if you want to check out my full thoughts on that film, please go listen to episode 13. But the reason why I don't include it on my top 10 is just because even though the message was great, I had a hard time coming out of it and really wanted to rewatch it. But that's not saying that I wouldn't rewatch it. It didn't have that urge to rewatch it right away. Now, with the top 10, every film had me wanting it to rewatch it again. And I think that's one of the biggest draws for me. The last film on the honorable mentions list is going to be a shocker, honestly, because I know a lot of people like this film. And that is Roma. If you want to hear my full thoughts on that, please go to episode 35. My main issue with this film is the first 2 acts. I think it is extremely slow, even though the third act is worth watching, and the acting in this is great, the direction is fantastic, but really it's hard to want to rewatch those first 2 acts because it's so slow. Now let's get into the top 10 films of the year. So let's get started. Now, number 10 is Mary Poppins Return. If you want to hear my full thoughts on this film, please go check out episode 27. But in short, I love this film. Going into it, I was worried because of Julie Andrews characters and the iconic role that she played in the original. But Emily Blunt does such a good job. I think the songs are fun. I think the message is great. And honestly, it was just a fun time and I cannot wait to rewatch the film. Now, number 9. This film came out really early in the year, but I still think it's a great film because the message is really great. It's honestly a very pleasant film. I've rewatched it now 2 or 3 times and it's still just as good. And that is Paddington 2. If you want my full thoughts on that, go check out Box Office Buzz. The review is on there. However, this film is really just fantastic. I really cannot really pledge how much I like this film. It has great acting. Hugh Grant is really hilarious in this film and there's just a lot of great things about it. Number 8 is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Now, if you want to check out my full thoughts on that, please go check out episode 23. In short, I think that this film is the best animated film that I saw all year. I didn't see a lot of them, but I do think that it definitely is one of the best animated films in a really long time. And yes, that's putting it up against Pixar here. So frankly, this was a really great time in the theater, especially if you're a Spider-Man fan. Number 7, Black Panther. If you want to check out my full thoughts on that, you're going to go have to read my review on Box Office Buzz. In short, this film is really fantastic. The message is great. Acting is on point with a lot of the MCUs. The villain, I think, is extremely compelling, which is a lot to say, especially for the MCU. And really, it stands alone pretty much from the entire MCU because you don't need to watch Captain America Civil War where Black Panther made his debut to understand the story that is going on within this film. And I think that was such a great thing by Ryan Coogler, who is one of the really great up-and-coming directors. Number 6 is First Reformed. For those who have been listening from the beginning, you know that I really liked this film when it first came out. This was my first episode on the formal review. Still, I think it's amazing. I really cannot wait to rewatch it. I think that it really does instigate conversations, and if you remember when I did my top 10 of the first half of the year, this was my number 2. Obviously, things have changed since then, but I think it's still a fantastic film, and it really instigates conversation. Now, before I get started on the top 5, I do want to say that I legit on a rewatch may regard these films as perfect for this year. I'm not so sure yet, but we'll see how it goes when I actually can rewatch them. Number 5 is Annihilation. So this was my number 1 film in June. So I think this is one of the best sci-fi films that have come out in such a long time. If you want to check out my full thoughts on this film, definitely go check my review out on Box Office Buzz. I love this film. The concepts are intense. It really just instigates conversations about biology, and it's just, I think, a fantastic film to talk about and really discuss. Now, number 4 is The Favorite. Now, this isn't my favorite film of the year, honestly, just because there is a filming style that I really couldn't get past in this, but to go hear my full thoughts on the film, go check out episode 26. Now, this film, I think, was extremely well made. It is a mind bend to really think about, and the final scene is just so odd, but I really think it works, and Lanthimos, I think, does another great job, and it just was a fun time watching this film, and I honestly want to watch it again just to see what else I can pick up on. So number 3 is At Eternity's Gate. For those who listened to episode 31, know how much I love this film. It is a piece of art from a painting aspect to a film aspect. It just looks beautiful. William Dafoe is amazing. It just works extremely well. Now, number 2 is Black Klansman. Now, this film I thought was extremely powerful. Spike Lee does a great job directing this film. It really correlates how much things have not changed since the events of this film, and it just is such a powerful film that if you haven't seen it, you really need to watch it. Now, my number 1, for those who have been listening, it's no surprise what this is, because it legitimately, I watched this film, it was perfect. I really could not find anything wrong with it. You can go check out everything that I liked about it in episode 33, and that is If Beale Street Could Talk. Barry Jenkins does another great job with this film, but at the end of the day, I just love this film. It's such a touching romance and also a very significant story, but it's also a very hopeful one. Alright, so that's my top 10. And that concludes the 2018 season. Thank you all for tuning in for this entire season of the Formal Review. I really love talking about movies, and so thank you all for listening. Really thank you all for your support and making this podcast possible. For those who have supported on a financial basis, I appreciate you. And for those who want to support financially, please go to anchor.com/the-formal-review and click support this podcast. Any contribution is appreciated. So you never miss an episode of the Formal Review for next season. Please subscribe on your favorite podcast service. We're on Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, and also leave a review because I'm always looking to improve and grow, and reviews are definitely part of that process. Thank you once again for tuning in. Until next season, I'll see you at the movies. Take care, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Formal Review. We hope you'll join us again.